You did a case study on our website, which I've heard so many people rave about. The one that you showed, I think it was for Whereby, where you showed the different components and how you structured them, which got people so excited. I'm like, oh my God. Designers are like, I want to know how to do this. But I think clients who saw that were like, oh my God, I want to manage my website this way. Yeah, so I don't even know how you got into all of this, like design, web design. Like, what's your story? How do you got to run your own studio? How did you become so good and famous?
It's a long story that goes back quite a few years. So now, yeah, I run my own studio, but I got my start, like, I mean, like all stories, it started with, a 12-year-old kid with like a cracked version of Photoshop.
Yep.
Starting with the graphic design and just poking around and
Do you
watching
know,
YouTube
by
tutorials.
the way, this is just a hint about your age, because the people growing up right now are just starting with a normal Figma, free version of Figma. They're not cracking anything.
True.
I don't think people these days even
Okay.
know what is to crack a software.
Or even know what Photoshop is beyond like maybe like
Exactly.
generative
Exactly.
fill, right?
Exactly.
So before Figma, there was Sketch. Before Sketch, we used to use Photoshop to design software, not using vector, total raster software, and you would save in Photoshop a new file for every like version of a design that you did. It would be a
And you
PSD, and
would
each one would
group
be
the
like a
layers.
few
You
hundred
would group the
megabytes.
layers. If you would want to have
Yeah,
multiple pages, you would group the layers. And then there was a feature called, I guess, layer stack.
layer
Forgot what it was
comps,
called, to show and hide.
layer
Yeah, layer
comps.
comps,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So you can hide and show pages. That was so backwards.
Yeah, and then you'd save it
All
as a
right.
JPEG. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, back I was 12 just doing like, classic just like design stuff, like getting inspired by like sports and music, just doing like stuff like that. And then MySpace came along, another relic that a lot of people these days probably don't know about. But yeah, it's social network before Facebook, where it was amazing. It was like the Android of social networks where like you could just customize everything. They give you like full control to just add all your HTML and CSS in the layouts. So for like the average person that was on there, it was like you could just like make your page look kind of aesthetic or sad, whatever that was at the time. But there's also a huge opportunity for like bands. So like I was big in the music scene growing up outside of Toronto, and there was a lot of bands that basically they would pay these big studios to like, or big studios at the time they seemed like big studios, but they would pay these studios to like build them MySpace layouts. So they'd be like proper, like you wouldn't have a website, you'd have a MySpace page, custom code, whatever. So this is all like all code. You just like, inspected or viewed the page source, and then you just kind of take that and you just reverse engineer it. You're like, oh, I can take this and then I'll go in Photoshop and change this image and now have this layout and it works. And so yeah, I was 12 when I first got my first like freelance gig. I got paid like $100 from a band to like make them a MySpace layout, design it, and build it. So from there, I got the itch. I'm like, okay, I guess this is like I'm going down this path. And then yeah, just like from there, I knew what I was doing. And then by the time I was 15, I was in high school, and everybody was getting like internships or like co-op placements. It was an internship at the time. Just at like random
Wait, does
places.
high school helps you get placement in the kind of like somewhere after high school, for after high school? That's how it works?
Um, no, so I mean, I guess it's different in every country, but in Canada, basically you have the opportunity to do a co-op placement where you're basically like inserted into a job that you find that will take you, that doesn't pay you, but pays
When
you
you're
the
15,
credits.
16.
So you're 15,
But
16. So like people
wait,
are
that's
like
not
literally
uni.
when
That's not uni or college. That's just like normal high school.
just yeah, just high school.
Yeah.
Just like give you a
Okay, that's
taste
great.
of, typically I think it's like a taste of like a potential career path, right? And
That's
then you get
crazy.
credits, you don't get paid. So like there's incentive for people to obviously hire you. So like I had friends that were doing it at like probably like a gym, or like literally one guy was like dishwashing, which is a weird choice for co-op placement, but
I think I'm gonna have a career as a dishwasher. Let me see how
yeah.
that feels like.
But I was like into design, so my teacher was like, okay, we'll get you into like a design shop. So like she found like a print shop, and this is like outside of Toronto in a small town. It was a print shop, and I'm like, I think I can like aspire bigger to this. So I found a place in Toronto, a design agency called One Method, and
How
I
did you
hit them
find
up.
them?
I just literally just Googled like just best agencies Toronto. Shout out One Method.
That's good.
They were
That's
one of
good.
them. And yeah, I like reached out on Twitter and just like, hey, like, do you take internships, whatever? A bit of a story there, but anyways, we got set up, and then I didn't even like interview. They're just like, yeah, great. I saw your portfolio. Let's do this. I like show up the first day. And they're
What,
like,
what
what?
by the way, what was your portfolio back then? Did you have like a website? Was it like
Oh, it was just
folder, PDF? Like,
no, it was a website. And the way I built it, actually, I think I built it in Photoshop, and then I hired a PSD to HTML company to build it for
that's
me
cool.
for like a couple
Yeah.
$100. But yeah, I showed up and they're like, "You're a kid." I'm like, "Well, yeah." They're like, "No, we thought you were in university. Like we thought this is like a college placement." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm here." So yeah, I was 15, and then I was just like, just started working there, doing all like the grunt work at first, and then I stayed there for 5 years. Left when
Nice.
I was
Did you
20
get
as like a
paid
senior
eventually?
designer. Oh
Did
no,
you
I
get paid
actually
eventually?
got, so the first semester I got just co-op credits, so I didn't get paid. And then after that ended, it was the summertime. So then they're like, "Hey, we want to keep you on." So I'm like, "Okay." We just signed on as like for payment. And then the following year back to school, and I basically got paid and got credits. So with that, I
That's
was working there
cool.
so much that I was able to graduate early because I had so many credits like banked up from them. And then I just like graduated, and then they're like, "Yeah, like just work here full time." So I'm like, "Okay, well, I could do this, or I could go to school, graduate, and then hope to get a job here full time again." So like I might as well just learn from experience instead of paying and getting myself in debt.
What kind of work were they doing?
So I it was pretty widespread as far as like the disciplines go. A lot. I Software wise, I was touching everything, and then now luckily I don't have to deal with all that software. But it was in Photoshop, it was in InDesign, it was in even some After Effects stuff. But it was a lot of digital stuff. So it was predominantly like websites, branding, some like TV stuff, some ad campaigns, a mix of like advertising and like digital stuff. So oh, and like we made like a clothing line. There's a lot of stuff,
That's amazing. Like a
and
very broad experience. Instead of going to school, you just
yeah,
had
so
kind of like experience in real world project in each discipline.
yeah, and that was great too because I basically like got exposed to everything, so I can decide where I was having fun and where my strong suits were. And I think pretty soon into it, it was like the branding and the web stuff, but I think more so the web stuff that was really my strong suit. So from there, also one of the highlights, we pitched on the Toronto Raptors rebrand. So I was
What
like a
is that?
designer on that. That was like a dream come true. So the Toronto Raptors, it's an NBA team in Toronto,
Okay.
like
Oh,
basketball.
cool. Cool, cool, cool.
So yeah, just like a kid from Toronto, just like pitching for that. That was super cool.
Nice. And you got
Yeah,
it?
that led
You
to other
won?
things, but no, we didn't win it.
Okay.
We didn't get it.
Very
That
cool
would have
though.
been that would have
Yeah,
been
very
cool.
cool.
But yeah, just like being exposed to all those different disciplines and the different like subsets of like
Did you have
industries
so
and
who did you
cultures as
learn
well.
there? Did you have like an art director, boss? Were you in meetings with clients? Like what do you get exposure to and mentorship for?
Yeah, like I mean, the owner of it, Amen, he was there the whole time. Taught me a bunch of stuff as far as like just like really high level design and like crafting my taste and stuff like that. And then just art directors and creative directors that you work with that get into the nitty gritty and like giving a lot of good feedback. And eventually, like throughout my time, obviously when I started there, I wasn't in client meetings, but I ended up like just as a senior designer, working with clients and just taking full reign and all that. So it was a great time that definitely like launched me into kind of my next phase. At that
I
point,
have to
I was
say,
just like,
I
okay,
also started I also started at the bottom of an advertising agency, and I had a boss who would print anything we design, even if it was just like whatever, he would print it, and then he
oh
would
yeah,
have a ruler to see if everything is aligned. And
no
and if
way.
it wasn't aligned, if there was a line kind of like moving, he would kind of like yell at you, and you would get a strike or something like that. And it sounds so stupid today, but it really got me into like just making sure that everything is aligned before I send it to the client. So I do think there's
That's so
actually a
funny.
lot of good things into like starting at the bottom at the grunt work. I think today it's very easy. Everybody's on Twitter. It's making six figure in 90 days. And it's like, oh, I want to start at the top
Oh
like
yeah,
everybody else on Twitter.
yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, you get humbled real quick, and that's still a thing today. Where like I think a lot of people, you know, they think they can skip that process of like doing like putting in the work and like really like doing all that grunt work, like you said, and then somebody comes in with the ruler and you get humbled, right?
So at what point
Yeah.
when did you decide to kind of like leave? Or why?
I
Why and
think
when?
I mean, I always had the ambition just to like work for myself.
Why?
Coming out of like in that position, I was excited to like get the experience there. But I don't know. I think because my parents are both entrepreneurs, and just seeing that the life they've set up for themselves, just having that flexibility and just really just like having control of your time is the biggest thing. And then also working in advertising, you don't really have control over your work
Yeah, that's true.
in two ways. One is like you don't get to decide what you work on. And then two is just the quality of this kind of the quality of work that you can deliver when you are the person that controls the work that goes out of the door. That's a nice feeling to have, to be able to own that full thing, as opposed to just being one piece where you don't have control over the end. So there's obviously a lot of pieces that go into it.
The who is setting the bar for the control? Like the agency manager or the client? Who do you blame for not having a
It's
higher standards? Not blame, but who's
that's
responsible?
the thing. It's like you can't you can't blame one person, because it all comes down to like time and budget and deadlines
Yeah,
and stuff,
for sure.
right? So it's like,
But that's always true. That's also true when you have your own business.
yeah, but when you have your own business, you can eat those hours yourself, and nobody's going to tell you like that you've gone over, right?
You
Like if
mean
I'm putting in,
you can choose to be less profitable is what you mean.
yeah, and you set those timelines to make sure that, and expectations to make sure all that stuff goes out, right? But also with where we're at today, I think it's just a lot easier to put that extra mile in compared to what it was before. But yeah, you can't point it to one person, because
What was the process
yeah,
like getting started on your own? How did you do that?
it was relatively smooth. But I mean, I don't remember too much about like the projects that I had right after. It was just like I had a few freelance clients here and there, and then it was probably about, I don't know if it was a full year or a few months. I had a friend that
Did you
worked.
start freelancing before you quit your job, or were you like, okay, I'm gonna make this transition, quit, and then figure it out?
I've always freelanced. Like I never stopped freelancing
Yeah.
or like doing side gigs. So it's like I always just had stuff on the side, and then I just kind of picked that up more. So I had a few like projects, like nothing too big. And then I had a friend who had worked at Kijiji, which is at the time it was an eBay owned company. So it was like the eBay classifieds, like Gumroad and, or no, sorry, Gumtree. Yeah, Gumroad is
All
the
right.
platform now. Sorry, Gumtree is
Yeah.
the, there's different versions of it in different
Right.
countries. Anyway, so yeah, they were looking for somebody to like rehaul their design, or like make a design system for them at the time, whatever, however they envisioned that to be. But basically, like their platform it was like not that many levels up from a Craigslist, so they're like, we need some visual help. And
So
then
that
yeah,
was
I just
kind of
went
like
in,
in a
and
big project. Was this a retainer
yeah,
or a one-time project?
initially it was just like, yeah, we just needed somebody for like 3 months to come in and like just leave us in a good position as far as the design system goes. And they're building a design team, so it was more so like, we're going to hire people to maintain this, just have somebody come lead it. And then that, like a lot of stories with those contracts, like that turned into 3 years of work.
Yeah.
So from there, like when I was in advertising, like you get a lot of experience like just doing design stuff, and a lot of that is like just make it look good, like we're just selling sexy things, right? And then made the transition into, let's make it work good.
Yeah. Product
So
design.
that's like
Hey,
really,
people actually need to
yeah.
use
So
this.
yeah, that's where I basically like was really like cutting my teeth on the product design side of things, and the full spectrum of UX, and within that as well, like finding out where my strong suits were along that spectrum. Um, and then yeah, just
How are
life
you
is just
thinking
like
about,
gathering all those things along the way.
yeah. How are you thinking about freelancing versus agency, but or like studio? Because you got like a studio name. Did you kind of like have that in mind to begin with? Like, oh, I want to build something bigger than just me, or
Yeah, I think like you can only
do
do,
you
I
have a
mean,
team,
especially
by
at
the
the
way?
time,
Do you have other
you can
people
only do
working
so
with
much
you?
yourself. Yeah, so mod is actually, our structure is probably not uncommon today. I think a lot of people are doing it this way now. We've been doing this like pre-COVID, so at the time it was a bit of a new idea, but we have like just a small handful of people that are mod, like the leadership team, and then basically we have like a long list of people that we tap into for each project. So
Yeah,
we don't
collaborators.
have like
Yeah.
crazy overhead and salaries and any like large commitments. It's like we're a core team, and then whatever the project needs, we bring these people
So
on.
who's on the core
Whoever's like
team, and
the right person.
how did you get to this core team? Like, who's on the core team?
So it's a mix of like basically like design, development, copywriting, and like kind of more of like the creative direction, kind of like uh, the manager, like kind of directing the ship and like bringing in business and you know taking care of everything. So we all met back like in advertising, or few of us anyways. And then we were all just kind of doing our own thing, and it was just kind of clicked where it's like we can be doing a lot more together, but we didn't want to give up those the things that we loved about running our own businesses. So it's like more so let's run our own businesses together, if that makes sense, where we still get those benefits and we can still like pull together as a team and make some cool stuff and really like synergize that way.
So wait, so was it you left your work, started running your own business, and then kind of like joined together with them, or was this the idea from the start? Hey, let's all leave or do this together.
No, the former. It was more so we were all just doing our own thing, and that wasn't the plan all along. But it just kind of fell into place, and it was kind of like it doesn't make sense not to do this kind of thing.
Nice. And
So
how does
yeah,
that,
mod
how long are
now
you doing
is
it? Does it work well?
yeah, it's been a couple of years. Yeah, it's great. I think it still gives us that flexibility of just like this is our own shit that we have responsibility for, and we're putting out things under mod as far as like obviously we're doing client stuff as services, and we're putting out all the framer stuff that I'm doing is like a subset of mod, even though it's just kind of like my ownership, as well as like the Framer commerce thing about which is bringing Shopify into Framer through like components, as well as building some nice templates. That was me and my developer at mod. So different people have different ownership of different things, but it's all under that mod name.
But financially, is it just like all the money comes in there and it's split between you, or just like how does it work financially?
Yeah, financially, it's still like we own our own companies, so it's really just more of a holding, a visual thing. So we're still kind of just billing directly to that
But
company
if you work
through
with a
our own.
client, does the client pays you and then you pay the people who help you, or do they pay mod and then people get salaries and stuff like that?
It all goes through mod, and then
Got
depending
it.
on who worked on the project, they would get paid out in their own way.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So it's not, it's the pay is based on the work that you did. It's not like a fixed salary or just like
Yeah,
even split or
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Interesting. Does that cause friction, or
No,
I'm
not
asking
at all.
because I know that I had multiple friends who had multiple studios. I've never run a studio. I only had worked on my own with collaborators, which is quite simple. But I've seen friends with studios that were initially, hey, we'll split everything 50-50, and then, oh, I'm too busy, you're gonna do that, and one guy feels like he's working more than the other guy, and it's like, why are we splitting? It caused a lot of friction for every project to think about who did what and what's the equal or the fair share, I would say.
As far as as the project comes in, it's pretty clear cut ahead of time. It's like I'm getting this, you're getting this, you're getting this. This is what we agree to, and that's what we get paid out. So there hasn't been any friction that way because there's not really much ambiguity between projects.
And you've mentioned that now you're exploring working for equity. How does that
Yeah,
work?
so we're about to sign a contract with this company called Subotica out of Vancouver. Really interesting company. They do food robotics, but it's not like robot arms or anything like that. It's more of a modular kitchen setup that automates dispensing of like salads and bowls and stuff. So it's a super cool like robotics company. They reached out to us to basically like become the design and marketing arm of their company. So we're taking that on in exchange for equity, so services for equity,
As
which
as
is
kind of like a long-term partnership.
yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Instead
We're
of
really excited
pay
about that.
or on top of pay?
Instead of pay. So yeah, so this is where like we've fortunately had a couple good years. We're in the position now to one like obviously it's nice to be able to position yourself and only take on the work that you want to take on, but then now we're taking on work and yeah, literally not getting paid until hopefully there's that point down the
That
road where we'll get paid nice.
Yeah, it's a very interesting model. I have to say, when I worked in an agency, and the agency I worked in actually had this model in a way, and we worked with a lot of startups and a lot of investors, and you know the term angel investor, right? You know it?
Yeah.
It's like usually
Hmm.
like a person who is rich and is just like writing checks.
Yeah.
And when I worked there, I kind of had a vision. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a design angel investor because I don't have money. I don't have a lot of money, but I have my design skills and I can invest in startups that I want to invest in. So that was kind of like my vision. But after a few years working with startups and seeing the failure rate, I actually realize it's actually and actually realize that even VCs, venture capitalists, most of the time are losing money. I realize it's actually a pretty risky proposition. Yeah, I'm wondering how it would go for you.
Yeah.
I think if I would do it again, I'd probably say I'm going to give you a discount on the price for equity, but I would still probably try to cover something.
Yeah, and to be clear, there was a lot of due diligence that went into this deal, and I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting this for a lot of people to go into that,
No, no, it's
especially like
by the way,
on
it's
larger term deals. But
we do have to talk about the upside because there is definitely an upside, and it's a very famous story. I don't know if you know this story, but the guy who did graffiti in the original Facebook offices
yeah,
took equity, and he made like $19 million or something for doing the graffiti on the Facebook office. So obviously it does, when it pays out really nicely, and it's
yeah.
worth having a couple of lottery tickets when it's a lottery ticket. But it's always
Hmm.
nice to have a few of them in the back pocket, I think.
And I think that's where like the term lottery ticket I think is appropriate. Where one, like obviously like there's so many things out of your control, and there's it is a lottery ticket. But I think the biggest criteria beyond all the due diligence that we put into it to make sure that we're in a good position and it's a good company and we believe in them and all that stuff. We don't take on any equity for things that we don't have control over, as far as the things that we can control. So by us taking equity, we're basically saying we're going to have control over the design of the products, over the brand, over the marketing, because we believe in ourselves. I've done some deals in the past where, just me personally, I've taken on that mix that you said of like equity and cash for a couple different companies, and it was just like a small subset of like design, and that's
Yeah, small
where I
project, and
don't
then
think
you
I would
move on,
really.
and then yeah,
Yeah, and that's more of a lottery because it's really just like, hey, I did my part, you go like figure out the rest. But I didn't have control over like every component that I could touch. And I think for me, just being like having that standard, it just sucks to see what could be and it not reaching its full potential. So with this deal, we're making sure that, as much luck as there is in those deals, we have as much control as we can to like make things happen.
yeah, that's interesting. I think in general, the world moves into these kinds of, we talked about the model where you're collaborating with a lot of people. It's not like the normal model of employees in a company and that's it. It's a lot more ownership based. People are getting equity, and they have more incentive to work with you long term because they want to succeed, or profit sharing. That's also something that I think is becoming more kind of like an interesting model. So yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think more designers should definitely try to think in this. I think the problem is a lot of times what I found is good entrepreneurs usually think highly of their company and they don't want to give away equity. Why? Because they think they really believe that it's going to be worth a lot of money. They would rather give you money than give you equity. While bad entrepreneurs, or not bad, but maybe desperate entrepreneurs, are like, hey, I'm going to give you equity because I can't pay you right now. And they're just trying to, you know, get the work done for free. And I think, at
Yeah.
least I've heard a lot of designers who got offered equity, and that would, to me, kind of like a red flag. From my experience, when I worked with really good entrepreneurs and I told them as part of a negotiation, hey, I want equity, they were like, really, it was hard. They were like, okay, we're willing to consider that, but number one, you're not going to get paid, or you're going to give us a huge discount. Number two, you're going to work. Let's commit that you're going to work with us for the long term. They were really picky about, hey, if we're putting you on the cap table, right? If you're going to be an owner of equity in our company, we want to make sure that you're a good fit and that it's going to be great for us as well. So
Yeah.
the point is, I think it's really good, but you need to, as you mentioned, do your due diligence and make sure that it's not just somebody trying to get the work for free, but it's actually a partnership. And yeah, but in what you're telling me, it sounds like a really great partnership because you can be their marketing side long term. You have an impact on the business itself. Yeah, sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think the partnership's a big angle, and that was a big part of what we were going through during that, like the negotiations, was the fact where there isn't any cash at play. Basically, the incentive for us to put out good work is like the biggest thing, and like that trust there is really important, because if you were to like sign a big contract for like a year with a company, it's like this giant like cash sum, then that's really really hard to trust that you're going to deliver on the value of that, because I could, throw in the towel, collect the paycheck, and screw somebody over. But when it's a partnership, it's exactly that, and there's like full incentive to actually like put out the best work possible.
By the way, it's I wonder what you're thinking about that. Uh, When you're working with a client who is not paying, it's true that in this case they're giving equity. My experience, and again, not experience when they're giving equity, but just when clients, you're doing work for free, clients seem to be less engaged because they're not risking. They're like, oh, he's working for free. Let's see what he does. If we like it, great. If we don't. Now, I don't know if it's the same case, because in this case, they are, giving equity, which is painful. But are you worried that, they're going to lack commitment because there's no pay?
Not at all. This is their baby, right? Like this is what they're putting all their time and money and their entire days into. Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all.
So you've mentioned you're also kind of doing like a mental shift in general, from moving from billing your time to thinking about other models. So what else do you have
Yeah,
on the
so
plate?
yeah, a lot of like just equity where I can get it, building brand equity, a different kind of equity, but trying to do a lot more on social media. And
What does brand equity means for you?
it's just being able to like building up your brand equity is basically building up your credibility and being
For Mod, for the studio, or for you, Matt?
it's kind of one of the same. Like Mod isn't on social media, right? I am the social media extent of Mod, because every other agency or studio, it's like, what are you sharing that is really bringing value to people that was like you can do on like a consistent basis, right?
But we haven't talked about how Mod is getting clients, and you've mentioned partly that maybe there's somebody in the team that is responsible for doing, I don't know, if sales calls or getting clients.
Hmm.
So what does that look like in general?
Yeah, I think for him, I mean, it's more classic biz dev. So it's really just like spending the years that he's spent in the industry, having these connections and nurturing those, and keeping an ear to the ground on opportunities and stuff like that. And fortunately, we're in the position now where we're more selective about the kind of projects that we take on and the clients we take on. So there's that side of things, again, the more traditional. And then Twitter has become just a great platform for yeah, like getting leads and getting clients. That's where I'm saying like I'm kind of the social media arm of Mod, because I can actually like personally bring value to people with like framer content and tutorials and stuff like that. Like I said, like
Does that lead to client? Doing framework content leads to client?
yeah, I think the best thing you can do is just put out knowledge and education, especially for free, because you're not only like obviously like helping people and building a community, but you're also just like establishing yourself as the person that knows how to do this stuff and is a leader in that space, right? So I think that's actually the biggest thing that I want to do more of, is just like putting out stuff for free and like really like giving value to people, because I know it's going to come back to me in other ways, and that's a very like fulfilling way to do things, where you can give and
Yeah,
get back in other
it's
ways,
marketing through value. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, marketing through service. I like that as well.
Yeah.
That's basically what we do in Flux, And
Hmm.
yeah, but weirdly enough, for me personally, I was doing content, a lot of content, but I wasn't thinking about this as, I don't know, as marketing. It's just, when I started my YouTube channel, it was just vlogging for fun, and it helped me build an audience of designers, but it did not lead to client work. But maybe, I don't know, maybe if I would do it today, it would be different.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I had, that was a big thing for me. Like before I started doing anything on social media, it was like, who's my audience? Because if it's designers, like that's great. I'll have to sell things to designers to see a return on that. Or is it clients? But if it's clients, it's like, what am I giving them? Right? Like consistently, that isn't really just stuff for designers or creatives. I was really stuck in that for a while, and like because of that, I basically wouldn't do anything. And then one of my tweets blew up when I just posted a video of like one of the framer sites I built, like one of the first ones I did, and it blew up, got like over 100 something thousand views. Got a bunch of followers from that, and I'm like, oh, I could just like put out framer stuff for designers, not overthinking it, and not really expecting to get much out of it. Just like, hey, well, what can I do here? And then that naturally led to getting more clients, as I said. So I think just
yeah.
like not overthinking
I
it,
think
and like
also doing case studies. I mean, you did a case study on our website, which I've heard so many people rave about. The one that you showed, I think it was for Whereby, where you showed the different components and how you structured them, which got people so excited. I'm like, oh my God. Designers are like, I want to know how to do this. But I think clients who saw that were
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I want to manage my website this way. This is what we need. Honestly, I was looking at it and I'm like, dude, we need this. So we're actually building the Flux Academy website right now, and we're doing it with Webflow, not with Framer, but we're basically building it based on components. And I have to say, I took a lot of inspiration from what I saw there. So I do think that case studies are a great way to talk to clients and bring value to clients, and then show them, how what you're getting at the end of the day. It's kind of like a sneak peek into the outputs of the work.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, and really, if you're putting out any content for designers, and it's like, here's how to make this thing, at the end of it, you're gonna see a finished product or a finished like feature, function, whatever, and all it takes is for a potential client to see that and be like, oh, I want that. Like they want the shiny things, or they want the functional things, or they want the organized things. So you cover all those bases, and you don't have to choose like, oh, I'm just going after designers. It's like, just put out that really good, helpful content, and whoever's going to see it, that might turn into something.
Twitter is weird because it's I think it's one of the most interesting social networks today.
For sure.
But sometimes it's just like people are trying to do kind of like virtue signaling, like, oh, I'm smarter, I'm nicer, I'm making more money, all that kind of stuff, where it's
been chaotic as of late, especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's entertaining at the least.
And every time I want to comment, I'm like, am I by commenting, am I a part of this? Now I'm trying to show that I'm smarter than them. And it's just like, you can't avoid it. But it's fun. And it's actually a great way to make friends within the community. So
for sure. Yeah.
So you told me that a lot of the people around you are winning right now, and it's going really well for you, and that gets you excited.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I know from different people. Again, I don't know if it's the Twitter thing, but sometimes when people around you succeed, that actually leads to, oh, I guess I'm not good enough, or maybe, oh, I need to be better, or how come I'm not as successful, and stuff like that. So it can work both ways. How does it work for you?
For sure. Yeah, I think the seeing other people win and getting like down about yourself, I think that usually comes from seeing people win doing things that you want to do, or that you think that you could do but aren't doing, versus the people around you that are doing other things that you don't have any interest in doing yourself, or couldn't do, whatever, is a lot easier to like just be happy for them. But even so, the other side of things, like, yeah, if people are around you doing the same thing and being successful, one, just obviously be happy for them, but two, it's like, I mean, use that as inspiration. It's like, that should be a case study of like how to do it. Or if you think like, oh, that person I'm more capable than that person, well, it's like, okay, well, now it should be super easy, because you can see that it's that easy to do, right? But no, the people around me, I mean, my girlfriend right now, she's in, I'd say, I personally, I want to say the biggest band in Canada, but if not, like, definitely
nice.
top.
Amazing.
Yeah, their new album's coming out.
Amazing.
As of recording this in a couple days on Friday. Yeah, they're just.
So you're actually the boyfriend of the famous person.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, they're called The Beaches. Go check them out. An incredibly talented rock band.
Nice.
For women, so talented, and just like, I'm
the
biased.
Beaches. How do you spell that?
The Beaches.
Don't want to assume.
Yeah. THE space BEACHES. Yeah, this really good music. I'm biased, but I'm not biased.
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, they're killing it. My sister is also putting out a bunch of music soon. Also killing it. And seeing my friend, like my good friend, put out like a bunch of side hustles, and one of them is like, soon enough it's gonna pass his main like job that he can probably focus all of his attention to, and just like, the ideas that come out of nothing, where he's like making physical products. His product's called Hit Hero. It's like a baseball like thumb guard to remove like the bat sting when you're swinging and making contact with the ball. So like, he like taught himself like 3D design, like made this to sculpt, what's it called, like the, you pour the silicone in, so he like printed it out. He's like hand pouring all the silicone.
Mold?
Yeah, the mold. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, he's like doing this all by
Oh,
hand.
very cool.
Like,
Wow, it's really diverse. You've got a lot of talented people around you.
yeah, and yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and I just like love helping these people out where I
Do you
can
think
too.
that's by chance or
Uh, no, I think it's like those are the people that I probably just kind of like attract to, right? Like that, like I keep around.
yeah,
Um,
you know the cliche, there's the cliche like the you are the average of the five people around you or something like that.
yeah,
And it sounds like you're in a really good position.
yeah. I definitely try to keep good people around me and hold ourselves accountable to like keep pushing ourselves forward and be each other's biggest fans. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I have to say, I did not grow up in that, not in that environment, but I just like my parents didn't have their own business and my friends around me, a lot of them were just like getting jobs and stuff like that. And so it was weird for me. I didn't have kind of like inspiration. I had to really also curate kind of like the people who I want to be around me. So it was a long process, but I'm 40 now. So now I've got like cleaned up my social network to
Yeah.
just have people that I want to be next to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a thing with age. Like every year it's just like you're taking a look at the people around you and it's easier to, stop hitting up the people that maybe you don't need to hit up and start hitting up more of the people that are good for you and good
Yeah,
people.
for sure. When you have kids, then you got like zero time to waste on anything that's not top priority. So that's when a lot of the cleanup happens.
Yeah.
Um, so you're about to be 30, super young.
Yeah. Yeah, I just turned 29 last week. Yeah, I'm trying to
Oh,
squeeze
nice.
out
Happy
everything I
birthday.
can before 30. Thank you. But I also just realized that I really abide by
Why?
the
What happens at 30?
it's just that marker, but I realized I abide by not the 10 point system, but the 8 point. So I actually have 3 years until I'm 32. That's what I'm looking at. I don't know what happens at 32,
Interesting.
but
That's kind of like is it the designer
yeah.
thing, like the 8 pixel grid type thing? Oh, nice. I remember when I was in my first advertising, you know, job. Again, I think I was like, I don't remember. Maybe I was 20. And that was the first time I had a friend who was 30. And I remember coming home and saying, hey, I've got a friend who's 30 and he's actually just like a regular guy. I was actually surprised that you don't die at 30. Now I'm 40 and I'm like, I don't know, I'm pretty young. I don't know.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this literally yesterday. Like, yeah, we're getting younger. We're not getting older. Like, I remember, like, obviously growing up, you think of people like as so much older than they are. But even just like looking back at like the past few decades, like looking at photos of people that are like 40 or 50, they literally look like they're like 70. They just like it's just like the mentality of like you're this
Yeah.
age, you need to like be this thing. But now it's yeah, there's you can do anything at any age. It's incredible.
So what are your plans for the last year of your 20s? What are you trying to accomplish?
uh, I don't know. Like I'm trying to
No,
set
you
some
mentioned
goals,
okay,
but
so you mentioned yeah, exactly. Let's talk about goals and planning and like how do you do that? How do you think about that?
I don't know. I'm actually terrible at setting goals. Because I'm like
Was anything of what happened to you so far planned or was some kind of a goal? Did you ever had a goal? You mentioned I always knew I wanted to run my own business, so
yeah, that's what I
that's
mean.
kind
Where
of
it's
like a
like
goal.
no, I like yeah, everything's very lofty. Where like there's that sweet spot between like over planning and not planning enough. So I think I just have like general directions I like to pull myself towards. But I think I do want to be better at like making like hard goals to reach. Um, and maybe failing at some of those I think will feel good. Because I think that's a big part of like not setting goals is just like, scared of failing and not hitting them. So yeah, just trying to pull myself in the right direction and probably set some real goals to aspire to.
I have to say that I used to do kind of like yearly goals and I've I've mostly always failed them and I don't think it felt good or bad and I think I read this book like many years ago about this. Oh, all of these people in this research who wrote down their goals were so much more successful than the people who didn't write down their goals. And I think I subscribe to that. But now I'm like, I think there's kind of like a general direction where you want to go, but the steps there, like, oh, this year I need to do XYZ and earn that much money or something like that. And then that never happens. That's not necessarily, I don't know if helpful, but I don't know. That never worked for me, I guess. I try to do it every year. I'm still doing
Yeah.
yearly planning.
I think the directional stuff is like, I think that's, I still write that stuff down. And I think it's more simple. Like, I want to do
Yeah.
this, or I want to work with this, or whatever it is. And I find a lot of times I'll write those things down in a notebook and I'll forget about them. And then I'll look through that notebook like years later and be like, oh, I did all these things. Right. Where it's not just the goal that
Yeah.
like it's this hard thing where it's like, make a work back to like, hit this goal. And then there's those milestones or the goalposts. But no, it's good to just like write down, just like you're just subconsciously living that every day and not getting too distracted by it.
Yeah. It's weird. I think I did this exercise a few years ago where, I wrote, how is your life going to look like in 5 years? And I wrote that down, like my life, my family, all of that. And my life looks like I imagined them, but what I imagined for work is completely different. Like the business that I have right now, like having an online school and selling courses, I stumbled into that. Like 5 years ago, I would probably say something completely different. So it's weird. It's like you set these goals, you achieve somewhat in terms of I got to where I want to go, meaning I'm making more money and the life that I want. I'm living the lifestyle that I wanted, but the past there was really not what I imagined.
Right.
So I think it's important not to be too kind of like fixed on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the sweet spot of just like having a direction and not over planning and not like just like wandering aimlessly. Because even like just the existence of Framer alone, like really just changed. Like I don't want to say that would change my life, but I mean, it definitely changed my career path and what I'm doing.
And you couldn't predict that probably
No,
12 months ago, or you can plan that. Yeah.
no, exactly. And it kind of goes to show you that when you plan, just like you could plan too small because these things that open up the floodgates can come out, and then it totally changes things. So yeah, I mean, I'm very
Can you
grateful
just
to that
highlight
team.
what changed? What changed because of Framer for you?
I think the biggest thing is obviously like just like the kind of stuff that I can take on and deliver. So like what it's doing for me as far as building sites, like I can just build the entire thing myself. So that definitely like I can take on more work, take on a lot of it more myself, and that leads to more money and some better quality stuff than I've had experience with. And then the other thing is just like what it's done for me as far as like social media goes and opening that platform and building a community, and then having the opportunity to build like products to sell. So like, I mean, I made a template that like brought in a few $1,000s, but like that's not life changing money, obviously, but it's just nice to have like knowing that I can make some passive income and help people along the way. And then I built Framer Commerce, like the Shopify integration for Framer. That's something I've always wanted to do, of like building, a product beyond
Is
just like
that
a template.
do we have a video on this coming up on our channel, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'll say next week, but I mean, by the time this comes out, it should be already on the channel, right?
Good. Yeah, good. Nice.
um,
I'm not following the content calendar. But that sounds really, really cool. I'm actually was looking forward to see that video because I'm excited about this.
yeah, but like going back to this, like the goals, like if I go back to my notebooks, I'll show you that one of the things that I wrote down was like build Shopify themes, and I've wrote that down in
Interesting.
my book, like probably
Before you knew,
a
before
decade
you were
ago.
into Framer?
Yeah, like maybe a decade ago or like
Oh,
5 years ago.
wow.
Like that was just an opportunity that I saw of like, this is solid passive income that I can make, but there's a bit of investment because I need to partner with a developer, and this is gonna take a lot of time. And like, I don't know if it's gonna get accepted in the Shopify store because I had no idea what that process looked like. It was just always in the back burner, and I've talked to a few people along the way that like were like, oh yeah, maybe we'll do this. But then now it's like this came along, and then I was chatting with my friend just at a bar. We were just catching up, and he's like, I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard about Framer. He's like, oh yeah, I love Framer. I'm like, cool. He's like, yeah, you want to build something? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what ideas do you have? Because we always have a million ideas. I'm like, well, yeah, just can we do Shopify? He's like, yeah. We went home, texted me that night, and then he like just asked me a bunch of questions. And the next morning, he's like, okay, so, and he just like, yeah, I'm doing it. So yeah, like
Nice.
it's
So
funny
it's
how
it's
you
yeah,
set
it's
those
good
goals or
when you
those.
write down things like goals. Then when you yeah, as you've mentioned, like your subconscious is looking for that opportunity, and then when it comes and you can connect to it, um,
Yeah, and just
that's a
patience,
very cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's on there right now? Like what's the next thing? What's the next goal? What are you working towards?
I think it's a bit of a tangible goal, and without putting numbers to it, I think what I'd like to do is for my passive income to be greater than my like non-passive income. So I think that comes down to just like a probably a hard number of like per month of passive income. And that's again more of the tangible thing. But going back to like the Shopify thing, like literally right now on my plate is I'm gonna be building out like a bunch of templates for Framer with the Shopify integration, which is like it's almost too fun where it doesn't feel like work. And there's so many things that I can make where it's just like I'm running around like I want to make this, I want to make this, I want to make this, and I'm just not being disciplined. So I just need to like buckle down and build that stuff out. I definitely want to like just focus on more like
Very nice.
community and yeah, giving stuff out. It'll be a lot of free stuff for sure. And then yeah, I realized too like there's definitely a sweet spot of the audience of what I can do for Framer of like that like more intermediate to advanced stuff, as we've discussed as well, like with that whereby like the way that's set up. I think there's a lot of great like beginner to intermediate level content out for Framer, and I think there's definitely some stuff for the experts, but I think like packaging that up into something that can provide a lot of value to a lot of people that are just obviously like Framer designers, but also on the client side of things. There's a lot of like teams that could benefit from that. So that's what's exciting me.
Yeah.
Might be the next thing.
It's I think you've made a kind of like an early bet on Framer, which is starting to pay off. And going forward, if Framer is going to grow, which right now looks like it is going to grow, you're going to ride that success. So that's really looks like a great bet. You know, I've made the bet on Webflow earlier on without realizing. I don't think, you know, it's, oh, I'm so smart. It just happened, right? It was kind of like the right thing at the right time for me personally. But I think I'm seeing this happening all over again with Framer right now. And, you know, looking at it from the side, kind of, I think you and Ryan and everybody that's in Danny, everybody that's in the Framer space right now are making good kind of like early bet on something that looks like it's going to work. Yeah. So well done for picking that up and being early on it.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I've got a long way to go. I'm still terrible at social media. Like I don't post nearly as much as I should and can. I definitely get in my own way a lot. But yeah,
You've said something which I think to me is key. You said building the stuff like the templates and those projects that you want to do right now literally doesn't feel like work. So go crank at those. You know, for me, initially making videos did not feel like work. And so I was cranking them. I wasn't getting paid. I did that every single day. That was kind of like my hobby. Turned out later down the line that it paid off. But what I've learned from this is when you feel something that you're so excited about and you just want to do it, even if you're not getting paid because it's play, go and do that. So don't let somebody tell you, oh, you definitely need to post on social media. No, you need to do, you feel like doing templates, go do the templates. Don't do what feels like work. Do the stuff that doesn't feel like work.
for sure.
That's kind of like my 2 cents. Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of this though. Like a lot of people tend to get in their own way in the sense of like assuming that everybody else knows what they know. Everybody's like is so good at at one thing, and you just assume other people are at the same level as you. So like for example, like I did a talk at Restaurants Canada earlier this year about like how to get using your brand, like elevating your brand to get people into your restaurant and bar, that kind of thing. And the talk was like pretty like high level, just like brand stuff. And like in it, I kind of felt like I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, but like I just felt like this isn't valuable information because like everybody kind of knows this, but nobody really knows this. Like if you're running a restaurant, it's like you didn't go to school for necessarily for like brand and marketing and business, all that stuff. So it's like obviously I'm going to bring value to you, but like I'm just getting my own way because I just think that like I'm going to be up there and you're going to think that I'm just like this idiot repeating the same information that you already know. Same thing goes for Twitter, but like there will be a lot of people that look at your shit and be like, oh, well, yeah, this is so easy. But there's a much larger audience that are going to see that and be like, wow, that's really cool. That's really valuable. That helps me a lot. And that's what you got to remember when you're putting stuff out there, because that's the key to actually like growing your stuff is like assuming that nobody knows anything.
And that honestly, nobody's going to judge you or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's us thinking, oh, people are going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think I'm a poser. They're going to think I'm a whatever. And it's in your mind. Like, I want to say nobody cares, although sometimes people are harsh on Twitter. But, I don't know. I think I was fortunate because for some reason I started on YouTube and people were always pretty pretty kind in the comments. So I never, in all of my hate comments is about the fact that I'm from Israel. So, sometimes people were
Ooh.
like, political stuff like, but I didn't get that much hate. And I think, I don't know, might be harder on Twitter. People seem
Yeah.
to be harder on Twitter.
Yeah. And it's also like when you get to a certain level, it's like if nobody's hating, then you're not at that level yet.
That's true. It's true. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. It was awesome to chat.
Likewise.
Dude, congrats on everything you've achieved so far. Sounds amazing.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like you're gonna have an amazing 29th year. We're definitely gonna continue working together and partnering and doing cool stuff together. Amazing. Anything, where do you want people to find you on Twitter, on Mod site, where like any famous last
um,
words?
yeah, I think on Twitter or x.com/MattJumper.
Fantastic.
YouTube, same thing, just @MattJumper. Check out Framer Commerce, I guess. framercommerce.com.
We'll
And
put we'll put all the links.
yeah. No, that's it. I'm done plugging myself. Go stream the beaches on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and all of them.
I'm gonna do this right now. All right, man. Cheers, my friend.
Cool.
Talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
See ya.